call. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Present.
Kelly,
Here.
Meggs,
Here.
Zilla.
Here.
Thank you.
Item number 2, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the
pledge
flag of
allegiance
the
to the
United
flag
States
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation under
nation,
God,
under
indivisible, with
indivisible, with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we'll adjourn to closed session. So I'll see you on the other link. So I'd like to reconvene us to open session from our closed session from which there is nothing to report. Agenda item number 6, approval of the agenda. Is there anything we want to move around, or if not, may I have a motion?
I move the agenda, please.
Second.
Thank you, Michael and Doug. Julia, roll call vote.
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
On. Sorry, I couldn't get it on.
Kelly,
Yes.
thank you. Meggs,
Here. Just to be clear, we're moving the agenda. So for those of you who's not here, I'll take that as a yes.
and Zilla.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous roll call vote.
Item number 7, open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Do we have any public that wishes to address the board? Seeing none, I'll move on to agenda item number 8, committees report out. Finance Committee, Tom, would you like to give us a report from the Finance Committee?
Yes, Mary and I attended the Finance Committee yesterday. We reviewed a good portion of the agenda today, including the monthly financials, which look very good. We went over those ordinances 100 and 101, and 101 is important because if we don't approve it, then we would lose service charge revenue from a housing project which was private but went public. And so we have to add a billing procedure. It'll be a direct bill now instead of being on the property tax roll. We talked about the additional construction management, and Justin is here for that, but that included, that was a Laurel Grove project, but it also included projects in Sleepy Hollows that were complete add-ons. We talked a good deal, which we're going to talk about some more, about awarding the contract for the F 2021-22 sewer project, or the 2021 gravity sewer improvements, and we had to reject a bid on that one. And then we went over the budget again, and you'll review, there's a lot of changes to our budget since the draft budget that we reviewed. And then we looked at the other things as well.
Thank you. CMSA, Doug?
I'm going to start, Doug. I'll give it a start. We're going to be getting a new Genbarker engine installed sometime after January of next year. The old Wasatch engine was a 750 kilowatt, 30-year-old machine that blew up on us a couple of years ago and had to be reconditioned and put back into service. The new engine is going to allow us to do many things, including islanding, which means that if PG&E happens to turn off the power, we can actually turn on a temporary generator while we make sure that the biofuel generator is up and running, which can all be done online, and then we can just run off the biofuels. The new engine is a 1.3 megawatt engine, which we will be able to run at 99.9 megawatts because of regulations against us. and it's 30% more efficient. So we'll be able to get there quicker. We'll be generating a lot more power and sending it back to Marin Clean Energy. Our original Marin Clean Energy was good for 10 years, but because we're going to be producing more power, we were going to have to renegotiate that, and there were two ways to do it. One was to keep in place the original contract and then just make a supplementary contract. But then when the other one would be, anyway, what we decided was it would be more beneficial to all of our, the JPA members and CMSA if we just said, look, let's figure it out and renew the contract, a set rate for the next either 10 or 20 years. And we're actually going to vote on that in the July meeting. But that's all very exciting that's going to happen. One of the things we're going to do tonight is we're going to vote on the FOG agreement, fats, oil, and grease. Santa Fe also did that, and they're all signed off to the new agreement, which just has some minor modifications in it. So if we sign that off, that'll be true too. And that was the exciting stuff for the day. The bees are installed, 42 hives, 2.5 million bees. And they're on vacation from doing their duty in the Central Valley, where come late this fall, they will be moved back to the Central Valley to pollinate almond trees and other fruits and vegetables. So the life of bees. Doug, any?
Just that we had a little debate there as to the power agreement. We're getting 8.347 cents a kilowatt hour, which, if it's a 20-year agreement and possible up maximum annual power production of 3.46 million kilowatt hours. So in potential, which we won't hit, we could make $288,806.20 a year for 20 years. There's sort of a debate between some of the board members. Michael and I were on the same viewpoint that 20 years is probably better, because we think the chances of this type of renewable energy going up in the future, we're not so sure that's going to happen. But we're willing to say that maybe we're wrong. Maybe 10 years would make more sense. At any rate, it's either a 10 or 20-year agreement at 8 cents per kilowatt hour, which is pretty good.
Yes,
Mary?
Tom.
I had a question on that. Don't most energy agreements have like a minor escalator, like we've been talking about? They don't? Seems to me that the energy costs are going, the retail costs are going up.
Yeah, MCE doesn't do that, nor does PG&E. And PG&E, by the way, requires you to tell them in advance how much power you're giving them, and we just can't do that. It's just not practical.
It's not
the next day. You have to tell them how much is coming in tomorrow, and we just don't know that.
okay.
It's a better deal, I think. Just bird in the hand, set it in for the next 20 years.
All right, thank you. North Bay Watershed Association. Pam, do you have a report on that this month? Oh, you're on mute, Pam.
We met June 4th, and the meeting comprised of 22 agency staff, stakeholders, partners, and the public. We had a guest presentation by Scott Dusterhoff. The presentation was about sediment for survival, a strategy for the resilience of bay wetlands in the lower San Francisco estuary. And he had a report on the future of bayland sediment demand and sediment supply under a rising sea level, and management recommendations for supporting bayland resilience. Also in the report, tidal marsh restoration, global sea level change, key sediment questions, and issues around North Bay baylands. So we also talked about dredging, and I guess, you know, dredging can be very expensive and difficult. So that was a interesting science-based discussion. Is over my head. And I guess the conflict about sediment is how to store it and mobilize it. And that's where all the costs really come from. And then the second presentation was proposed regional one water drought strategy funding initiative. And so we're going to have a beginning meeting. I think it'll be at the next meeting. And North Bay Watershed was established 20 years ago. And so they're starting to look at the future of the agency, but also using the one water strategy, which I think is really vital because it's going to help staff and partners to develop a regional drought strategy funding initiative. And last, one of the members who's from the American Canyon, Leon Garcia, they talked about different approaches they're using in their various districts. And in the American Canyon, they've implemented a new online program to monitor water use day by day. A new housing development was built that contains 100% recycled toilets. They have cash for grass program. I don't know if that's a typo there. Saved water for equivalent of 273 houses and low flow toilets. There are programs for using recycled water where you can drive up, fill up your tank with recycled water to irrigate. Now, my ferns are going into shock. And Steve Moore, this is what we were talking about today, is looking at this next step on where are we going to go with our communities on planning. Also in this report, they talked about water use and requirement for purple pipes. So next meeting is July 9th, and I sent you all the minutes. They're great minutes, but they're 7 pages. So that's it.
Thank you. I know we've included some money in our budget for purple pipes. So that's exciting. Item number 9, verbal report by general manager. Steve?
Good evening, board members and folks that are joining us. Thank you. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. We can get on with our business tonight. A few items to give you updates on the Larkspur Landing property. The final report on the cleanup of PCB contaminated soils to EPA will be delivered to EPA this Friday, based on extensive comments we received on the draft report, and no further changes are anticipated. And so we believe we'll have completed our obligations, but we don't know exactly when we'll get a letter from EPA, so we'll get more information on that in the coming days. Second issue, 1111 Anderson, we made some progress on Comcast accepting alternative access to the warehouse. And so it looks like we're coming to a meeting of the minds, and within the next month, we may see some movement there on agreeing to lease terms. So to be continued. Third, on the Regional Water Board cease and desist order, progress on that. You recall we met in March and laid out a compliance plan that they accepted at the Regional Water Board. Part of that was getting work done by June 30th, right? And so we'd gotten most of the work done, but there was an aggressive timetable to get the remaining work done. So I'm pleased to let you know, and I want to acknowledge the efforts of Manny Vigil, the repair crew supervisor, that all in-house repairs are complete in compliance with the cease and desist order in advance of June 30th. They're done. He was done with all of them by June 1st, except there was one on Angela Avenue that got done last week. So, and he even took on some repairs we thought we had to contract out. So I'll follow up with some more information about Manny, but that's good news. And then all the other defects we're supposed to do by June 30th, they're going to be under contract if you approve tonight's contract to be completed. So we're really in substantial compliance, and so that's great news. Fourth, I want to let you know we hired 3 new staff. And Felicia can help me fill in the gaps, but we recruited for a full-time employee with a long-term employee, Sasha Amir, moving on and joining Peralta Community Colleges District. We had a vacancy, and we hired more of an entry-level administrative coordinator because Christina Velasquez qualified to take Sasha's position, and so we're thrilled for Christina. But also we hired Katie Dunbar to fill in the administrative staff. We had a lot of qualified applicants for different positions within our organization. So we also hired, in addition to Katie, we're welcoming Courtney Buell, who is a management analyst in temporary positions, supporting Phil, who's here in the room, and Patrick in the engineering side of the house. But Courtney also comes with public outreach experience. So the tasks that Steve Mixis used to cover, she's going to be able to take on with our support in managing our public outreach. So you'll get to know Courtney more later on. And then finally, a third employee, somebody with a lot of payroll experience, Christina Winicke, has been hired temporarily as a senior accountant type position. And so we're seeing how that goes. And just letting the board know that when we do temporary hires, it's with an eye toward a permanent position if performance is adequate and there's a good fit. You still have to compete for a public agency job, but it's a pathway for permanent full-time employment, and we do have vacancies that could accommodate that. So it's something that doesn't go on and on. So anyway, that's great news that folks want to work here, and it's been great having the new folks working here and new energy, and there's a great attitude here. Fifth, I'd like to, you may have seen this, but we were on the front cover of Municipal Sewer and Water Magazine, the national magazine. I'm here with the crews, 3 of the 4 operating chiefs. We got pictures of the guys doing repairs. It's national news because we do a lot of things in-house, and we use a competency-based training system, and we use equipment for in-house repairs and line maintenance that really are interesting to other agencies around the country. And so this was a nice thing that shows the interest in Ross Valley Sanitary District now has a national scope. And Felicia's in there too, talking about how if you want to do competency-based training, you need to work with the unions, and get them comfortable with the whole program before you launch it. And so we did that. She deserves a lot of credit. And even Julia was working on the Labor Management Committee efforts back then in 2018. So this is a chance, to recognize everybody's hard work here and how, it's interesting to others. It's what we're getting done here. The one thing, so moving on, the drought, hopefully you got a copy of these. I had Julia mail these to you. So if you haven't gotten them already, I think they're coming in the mail, right, Julia?
Yep, if you have not received them, you should in the next day or so. They're in the mail. You
have your souvenir. Oh, and you can get them, you can get it online, but I think that the hard copy is kind of more interesting, not because of the cover, but because of the pictures and the layout. They do a nice job. Okay, moving on the drought, serious drought. It feels like, based on the experience of the last drought, we're having conditions now that were in year 2 of the drought that feel a little bit more like year 3 of the last drought. So we want to acknowledge that it's very serious. Measures we've taken to minimize our water use include renting a water truck. So far our metrics look good this month. We're using much more recycled water than potable water. I will say we struggle at the end of the day, and we're going to have to use overtime to be able to meet our production targets. So there's a financial impact of the Marin Municipal Water District drought restrictions, and we'll be able to quantify that. So, we'll keep an eye on it, but we are achieving great progress in increasing recycled water. As you heard last month, we already recycled 40%. We're going to be, increasing that significantly, and we'll continue to report out. I want to announce that we received a grant. The board asked me, when we were going to remove the old abandoned sewer from Ross Creek at the Shady Lane Bridge. You asked me to apply for some grant funds. So our consultant RDG put the net out and tried to find some grants that we could get, and we were successful. We've been awarded a grant for $20,190 from the California Fish Passage Forum, which is a partnership with the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission, Cal Trout, which is, California Trout, a reputable nonprofit, and some other and agencies, fisheries agencies. So they're very supportive of this action that you, the board, have supported. It's a voluntary action. It's not required by any permits or anything. We're just doing it to make the creek better fish habitat and make it more pleasant to look at. Right now, it just has this old sewer in the bed, and now we're going to turn it into a more natural looking riffle, they call it, which is a gentle rapid. More to come on that, but we expect to get that completed. It's probably going to cost about $70,000 to $100,000 to do the construction. So the $20,000 helps offset that cost. And it's great to have a partner in the California Fish Passage Forum. If you come to Kerner Boulevard, Alphys, you'll notice a little different in appearance. What has changed? We paid to have the acacia trees removed. They were starting to lean over and destroy a front wall, and we're leaning into the administrative offices, and we were worried, and we had an arborist come by and advise us to remove these trees. So there's a lot less shade in the front area there. It's more sunny, and it actually kind of spruces up the place a bit for its curb appeal in the event or when we eventually have to sell the building when we move to 1111 Anderson. We were nominated for 2 awards in CASA, California Association of Sanitation Agencies. 2. One was for innovation and resiliency, or excellence in innovation and resiliency for our smart cover optimization efforts. And the second award we were nominated for was in public outreach and education for our COVID-19 wipes commercial on cable TV and the social distancing signs that we put on our trucks. These, we had our folks that work for us submitted on our behalf, and CASA accepted these projects as nominations for statewide awards. And we'll learn about in August whether we won, but just getting nominated is a great honor. Because there are 1,200 wastewater collection systems. Did I mention that? We're one of 1,200. Okay. Then finally, COVID-19 update. I really don't have a lot of news. I think y'all have been following it. That the governor is going to make a decision very soon. Tomorrow night, the Cal OSHA board is going to meet about COVID requirements in the workplace. Things will change. Andrea and Felicia reminded me that it's currently predicted that by the end of September, we'll probably be having in-person board meetings. That's the word on the street, but it's not set in stone yet. Is that right, Felicia?
Actually, as of yesterday, the governor supplied an order that gives a timeline for all of the emergency orders that he put into place last year, including the one related to the Brown Act, and it will expire at the end of September. So starting in October, we will be back to the pre-COVID rules, which means if any board members wish to participate by telephone, there are some hurdles that we all know and love in order to do that. So I would anticipate we'd go back to in-person board meetings in October unless earlier.
Oh, thank you very much, Andrea, for the clear update on that, because it seems like the COVID guidance is anything but clear this week. But I think, give it some time, and maybe, in a week or two, things will settle down a little bit. And there's a likelihood that we won't have masks in the workplace in the next few days, except for those that have not been vaccinated. Stay tuned. All right, and that's it for my update. I appreciate you staying through all of those different aspects that are going on, but it's never a dull moment at Ross Valley Sanitary District.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. Anybody have any questions, or any public have any questions about the general manager's report?
Just a quick comment. Again, I love the national article and the front cover. We've been on the front page a lot in the past, and it's a nice change to have it be nice.
Agreed. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, we'll move on to agenda item 10, verbal report by board members and requests for future items. Do we have any board members who wish to make a verbal report or request for future agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to the consent calendar. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull off of the consent calendar tonight? Yes, Doug.
A and C, just quick comments if I can. You're on mute, so I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
On the minutes, on reporting to the Central Marin Sanitation Agency, it says Director Kelly noted the presentation of CMSA's OPEB and pension strategy and said he was against taking out a bond to pay off liabilities. I wanted to just put that a little more in context. I realize these aren't verbatim, but what I was asking was for CMSA have a strategy similar to ours, where we pay them off early, but we don't take out bonds to do so. So just a quick check on that. And then on C, I'm just curious, Julia, do you think the CASA is actually going to happen in live? Really going to?
Julia, you're the COVID expert on CASA, right?
Well, I know, and having spoken to Cheryl McKelvey at CASA, they considered long and hard whether they're going to do a virtual conference or do it in person. And they waited as long as they could to publish any materials either way. So I think that if they are publishing that it's going to happen in San Diego, they have every belief that will happen there.
Okay, thank you. I'm if there's no other director pulling anything, I'm happy to make a motion on that.
Okay, seeing no hands waving, please.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll
Second.
second.
It looks like it was
Late,
Doug.
Tom.
Michael by a hair. Julia, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Meigs,
Yes.
Philip,
Yes,
unanimous vote. Thank you.
thank you. Item number 12, consideration of granting tentative approval for public sewer extension permit number 405 to be constructed within Crescent Lane, San Anselmo, California. Bill or Steve, you want to introduce the item? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'll introduce the item, and then Phil, I'll ask you to introduce our guests that are here. We haven't had a public sewer extension item for the board's consideration for a couple of years, so I thought it was worth giving the board an opportunity to learn a little about the process and invite folks that are working cooperatively with us to meet you and answer any questions. In this case, it's a little bit of a different type of extension because it's actually a contraction, or it's a shortening of the sewer, if you will, to a more of a publicly accessible right-of-way and to get public infrastructure off of private property and to rework the laterals that connect to that system to be in conformance with district standards and just be modernized. As with much of our system dating back to the early 20th century in some cases, it's great to have this opportunity and to have a partner in the private property owners that are looking at doing a modernization instead of parcel by parcel. Look at this little sewer system here and to rebuild it in an organized fashion. So we welcome that type of partnership, and they are putting the resources forward to make it happen. And there'll be a benefit to the section of public sewer that is still there that can always use upgrades. In this case, we have like 3 different pipe materials So, upgrading it to modern would be useful. So with that, I wanted to just introduce this change to the public sewer system that's proposed generally, and we have a process to do that. And we've got our partners present, and I want to hand it off to Phil Benedetti, who's been working closely with them to navigate the public sewer extension process. Phil?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, joining us tonight, we've got Glenn Sherman, the owner of 218 Crescent, and the civil engineer tasked with preparing plans and specs for their construction portion is Michael Tarnoff. And yeah, in terms of details of what they're going to be doing, it's plans are going to be prepared by Michael Tarnoff, and we work through the process to basically approve in this case, it's a shortening of the sewer system by about 150 feet, or is it, sorry, 113 feet shortening of the sewer system, and then rehabbing about over 50 feet of our system there. So we'll be working closely with both of them through that process.
Board members, or Michael or the homeowner want to say anything on this item?
Yeah, let me just start off and introduce myself. Michael Tarnoff, civil engineer. Grew up in Marin and been working here for many decades. This project is a convergence of sewer laterals for 4 different properties, from sort of west to east, 208 Crescent Road, 218, 220, and 228 Crescent, and removing the sewer main from private property on 220 Crescent and replacing it with some lateral work, and then building some new main within the public right-of-way, and putting a new manhole at the end. So we're just improving some work here, and Glenn Sherman is with us, and I'm just not sure what your connection is, Glenn, if you want to try to talk or not. But he's the homeowner, and he's been working with the adjacent homeowners to get this work done, and he's financing the work.
So I'm not sure if you guys can hear me clearly, because I seem to have a delay. Thumbs up? Okay. So I've worked with you guys for a very, very long time. Sometimes through the county, sometimes through stuff that happens through the Marin Community Foundation, and sometimes on residential development. And I'm a big fan of the Ross Valley Sanitary Sewer District. And I do want to take the time to also say that working on this little project with Phil and Steve it's kind of fun for me, because I listen to people complain about the good works that you do. Just today, I had to get into an argument with one of your crews that turned around in one of my driveways and tore a waterproofing coating, and I had to have like a therapy session to get everybody to say, you don't lie, you actually say, we did it, we're really sorry. And that allows me to go, yes, accidents do happen, and don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. I'm a fair person, and I'm a person who really appreciates the county I live in and all the different factions of the municipality that I work with. So what happened in this situation is, I own a home at 218 Crescent. My neighbor at 220 Crescent has the public sewer, end of the public sewer line running through the back of her property, with a rod hole at the end of that sewer line that actually sits on both our property lines. We happen to have 2 other neighbors that converge on that same public sewer line that are replacing the sewer lines, and we're all doing it at the same time. And not everybody understands the process. They all find it uncomfortable. We have a private property with a public sewer line on it. And just based in my experience, I know you guys don't need the headache, nor do you want the headache of neighbors trying to figure out what to do and leaving it under your purview. So I just took it upon myself to plan a development with Michael Tarnoff, who's a civil engineer who's worked with both me over the years and with the town of San Anselmo, and said, look, the sanitary sewer district is busy. We have a project that's fairly simple, but I don't really want to go through the red tape. I don't want to have people's construction timelines affected. I'll just pay for it. Let's figure it out. Let's work with these good people. Let's get it done. It will also help other people in the county who can afford it, who don't support Ross Valley very well in some of the initiatives that they have, to start to learn to take responsibilities for their own stuff. So I just thought it a win-win to jump in, get something done, do it with you good folks. You know, Steve's going to make me laugh through the process because he's a go-getter. You guys are very lucky to have a Steve Moore. And right behind him is Phil. And it's something that we can get done together. It doesn't have to be a big hassle. We all are engineers. We understand what needs to be done. And so we're kind of jumping in and saying, let's go do this thing. Bless you, Mary. And, you know, I've done a lot of public-private projects with Marin County. I see the success of it. I like doing this little thing that actually happens to be part of my own property. And it allows sanitary sewer district to manage their own infrastructure, not on private property. And it's a win-win for everybody. And you guys don't have to pay for it. I will.
Thank you very much.
Bill, Steve, did I do okay?
That was excellent. Thank you.
I want to let other people weigh in, but I want to also tell you that I grew up playing in the backyard at 220 Crescent because I was friends with Julie Neal, who owned these for the current residents, the Warners, who I
Kelly.
So
Kelly.
I know that corner. Lovely.
Do you recognize President Stilla, do you recognize the rod hole picture on
Not
page?
necessarily, but we did conduct some archaeological digs back there in 4th grade. So we were down in the dirt, Julie and I. Anyway, that's lovely. Doug, do you want to ask anything or say anything as a San Anselmo?
No, I just want to thank Glenn. I think this is a great project and thank him for stepping up. He said such nice things about the sanitary district. It knocked me completely off the Zoom call. I had to get logged back in. But it's really it's gracious of you. It's a good project, and I hope that we have our staff perform well for you.
I do want to make sure that in the future, when things come up like this, when neighbors come to you with new work in the residential areas and they have conflict and they have old infrastructure running through, I know it sounds odd, but it's sometimes good to use another customer like myself as a reference for them to reach out to and speak with. And I'm always happy to do that stuff, because going forward in this future, as infrastructure falls apart, there are people who have to understand that there's ways to contribute other than through taxes. And in a county like Marin, I'm very fortunate to be able to afford to do this. I have a great neighbor that Mary had mentioned, Eric, and my neighbors, Eric and Kelly Warner, who care about how they can contribute. And so more and more people are going to have to do this as our infrastructure gets older and as things change in the world. Private participation is important. And I just want to support that kind of thing as I get older and I'm still here in the community.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to thank the homeowners here for doing this project. And this is not a difficult one to accept. You know, it's a board action, but it seems like there isn't a single downside about this. It's all upside, and I'm certainly in support of it for sure. And I appreciate the attitudes too.
I think we're going to make a documentary film during the work and use it as an RVSD sort of promotion thing of how we all work together. And I'm not even joking.
Sounds wonderful. Okay, any other board members have any comments or questions? Any
I'd like to
members?
move this.
Seeing no members of the public other than those who've already spoken on this item, sure, Doug, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you. As the San Anselmo rep, I'd like to propose that we grant tentative approval for public sewer extension, PSX, permit number 405 to be constructed within Crescent Lane in San Anselmo, California.
Second.
Thank you, Tom.
Good.
Julia, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Oh, maybe. Of course.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Beggs,
Yes.
Scylla,
Yes,
unanimous vote. Thank you.
thank you. Okay,
All right. So Phil and Steve, that blank check that you took from me after you wrestled me to the ground, I guess you can, and forced me to sign it in blood. I guess we can go have a project.
thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a
And
great
thanks to
night.
Michael as well.
Michael,
Okay.
thank you.
Guys,
Thanks for joining us tonight. It was great.
have a good evening.
All right, agenda item number 13, consideration of awarding and authorizing the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute construction contract for the FY 2021 gravity sewer improvements project with Glossage Engineering in the amount not to exceed 4.3 million or so. Steve, please.
Yeah, great. I'll kick it off and I want to acknowledge Phil Benedetti, our associate engineer, for his good work on this project so far. And this is now a continuation. You know, this is the second of 3 capital projects that we're putting out to bid for this summer that are of the major level, as we've spoken to repeatedly. Setting these 3 projects up, it's been really great having Phil here to make sure we're meeting deadlines and getting things out timely, and managing the bidding process. We opened bids for fiscal year 2021 gravity sewer improvements project June 3rd, I believe. It was in the first week of June. And as shown in the staff report, we received 7 bids for this job. The engineer's estimate for these different sewers around the region, we've talked about this a lot, you know, with respect to the design contract you approved and the construction management contract that you approved through the RFP process last month. Now we're talking about the contractor, you know, selecting the contractor through a low bid competitive process to construct the improvements that are located in many locations throughout our district. To deal with what I talked about earlier, the cease and desist order pipe defect list, as well as some projects to deal with maintenance issues that have been going on, to get rid of maintenance problems, and also as a customer service, the work on South Elysia really addresses a longstanding defective lateral and main system there near the Bon Air Bridge, where the medical offices are. So we're meeting all of these goals with this scope, and it's pretty large. Like I mentioned, $5.1 million engineer's estimate. When all's said and done, my hope was to do something for $3.25 million when I had this project up a year ago, right? So it's more than we hoped. But the competitive bid process with 7 bids received show that 6 out of the 7 were under that engineer's estimate. So we have a repeat story, although not quite as dramatic as last month, when we awarded the Butterfield Arroyo Kenrick project, where we had all the, most of the bids well below engineer's estimate. Here we see a similar pattern. We can speculate, to try to answer the question, why are we getting such competitive prices? That would be an interesting dialogue we could have for a while. But in this case, though, I will point out there was a low bid that was quite a bit below the rest of the bids. And sometimes that raises some red flags. We want to get a great deal. We want the board, we want to be cost effective and get the best possible price. But in this instance, when we peeled back the onion a little on the bid package, we saw 3 areas where they were, the low bidder was not responsive to the instructions of the bid. And so we also in parallel did our due diligence, and Phil helped with this, to look for references of this low bid contractor, and we saw some potential problems there. So on the basis of not being responsive to the bid instructions, which makes us vulnerable if we award the bid to being challenged by the next lowest bidder, right? So it's not just because we may have some concerns with the quality of the low bidder, but also our own vulnerability of being, challenged for awarding this low bid based on it not being responsive. We wrote a letter, worked with our attorney, Sean Filippini, and officially rejected the low bid. And we recommend to the board tonight to award the contract to the second lowest bidder, who we found to be responsive and responsible, and that's Glossage Engineering. It's still 15% below the engineer's estimate, and at 4.37 million, it helps us make ends meet, is looking ahead to being within the capital budget that's that's further up in the agenda tonight. So we think we have and then we also will note that Glossage Engineering was the same company that was the selected contractor for the Laurel Grove Sewer Rehabilitation Project, which was very successful. We just issued the notice of completion last month for that project. Very challenging. That was a 1900 sewer. That was a 121-year-old sewer, or 120. And also we did the extra work with them opportunistically because they were so competent and very good at working in tight neighborhoods, sensitive locations, very cooperative with neighbors, and considerate when working on private property. So I think we're fortunate to have them be the second bidder, and I encourage the board to award this contract for getting the remainder work done to comply with the cease and desist order in the gravity system. And so with that lengthy introduction, I wanted to give you a little backstory there and allow Phil to fill in any gaps that I may have left in the briefing. If there's any thoughts, Phil, you have to add, or we could just go on. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I not too much to add to that. I just thought I would reiterate, how solid of a contractor Glossage Engineering is, and for this particular project, they are a perfect fit for the work. Steve was mentioning, tight, sensitive areas, and the areas of Sequoia Park. It really, and various other parts of the project really demand a contractor that can come in and perform that work both quickly and without playing games. They're clean, tidy, friendly, and they are hard workers. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And I spoke with Luis with Glossage, and he could not join tonight. He had another conflict, but he said to put in a good word.
Great. Board members, any questions, comments? We reviewed this in finance. Pam, if you're speaking, there you go.
Sorry. I think it's great. I am a little disappointed that nobody's not here from the company. I understand conflicts, but this is a $4 million award. Am I right? So
4.7.
I think next time, Phil, twist an arm there.
Right.
I mean, I just,
Agreed.
We take
Uh,
Glossage Junior.
yeah, I always like meeting people too, that these big projects. I think it's really interesting. But anyway, yeah, I'm for it.
Great. Doug, did you want to say something?
I know I'm for it. I'm fine with this. The only kind of quick question is, when I'm looking at these pictures, is there any particular reason why this was all one bid? Couldn't we have done San Anselmo and then Larkspur? It looks like the one at Marin Shopping Mart is fairly simple. I'm, not a big deal. Just curious how this is put together.
Yeah, you're right. You always have the choice of lumping or splitting, right? And so through this exercise, we're trying to optimize in terms of our time and trying to get economies of scale, right? So if you have a certain amount of length of open cut, you will attract the general contractors, and because if you have too much pipe bursting, it's more of a specialty. So, we designed this in a way to try to attract a greater diversity of competitive bids. And I think I'll say that we were successful. That strategy has brought about good prices per foot, unit costs for all of this construction in one package. We took a little bit of a chance being a little above 5 million. I think a sweet spot is 4 million because of bonding capacity. We'll get more competition. But my theory, my hypothesis was kind of disproven a little, that we got 7 competitive bids, even though it was over the 5 million mark. That one is a little head scratcher, and I was a little, I wasn't sure if we were going to be this successful, but it turned out to be, and I'm thinking it might have to do with the diversity of the method that attracted more of a diverse group of bidders. But that's the goal, right? Is to get many bids well under an engineer's estimate, because that's the downside of having too bloated of a scope. Is getting limited bids that are too high, and that didn't happen in this case. So we were fortunate, but that's some explanation of why and also we were driven by compliance. We really need to get all this raft of work done, and so we took a chance being a little bit high on the engineer's estimate, and we're counting ourselves fortunate that things kind of bounced our direction.
When do you anticipate this being completed?
Yeah, Phil might have some insight on that. I think this could go into the wet season a bit. We're going to get one of the first things we get on submittals when we get underway is a schedule from the contractor. So yeah, we'd love to be done by November, but realistically, we may have to navigate some wet weather. But it's not impossible.
Let's just pray we have some wet weather.
Yeah, well, wet weather would be a good thing.
Right, and so it sounds so bad, does it?
If I can just say that if you look at all the pictures of where we're doing all the work, we're pretty much in every part of our entire district. And, I can tell you from personal experience, having every single day that they were on Laurel Grove, I went out of my way to exit my driveway and see that they were doing, and I never heard a complaint from any of the neighbors. The people were kind and considerate, kept everything absolutely well marked, and all of us up to date on what they were doing. And so I'm thrilled to think that the rest of our district in the areas we're going to be doing work are going to get the same kind of consideration that I saw on Laurel Grove during the long time that they were here doing their work. And it came out great.
That's great. Tom, go ahead.
Well, this project shows, remember we learned a number of years ago that instead of replacing, when you do a project, instead of replacing the entire line, we just replace pieces of it. And so it's a little bit more expensive to do it, but it overall saves money because we don't replace parts of the line that are still good. And so I guess that's the logic here. There's a lot of small projects, and we're lucky to get a company that's good with the neighbors, because they're going to be in just about every neighborhood, seems like, all over the place. And if there's no further debate, I'd like to make a motion.
Sure.
Okay, well, I move that we award and authorize the general manager, upon review and approval of council, to execute the construction contract for the fiscal year 2021 gravity sewer improvement project to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Glossage Engineering, in an amount not to exceed $4,370,172.
Do I have a second? Michael seconds.
Second.
Julia, roll call vote, please.
Yes, thank you. Borstein,
Yes, ma'am.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Megs,
Yes.
Zilla,
Yes,
unanimous vote. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 14, consideration of approving resolution 21-1604 to adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget. Steve.
Thank you, President Silla. It's that time of the year. And we're pleased to present the proposed budget for this coming fiscal year. Certainly want to acknowledge the hard work of Felicia Newhouse, the finance manager and assistant general manager, and of course Melvin Garcia is here with us as well, pulling this all together. And what this item is, we went into some depth, as we always do in May, to provide a draft budget for your input and discussion. And we listened and made some changes, but we also gave you a little bit of an upfront warning that it looked like our expenses might be higher due to a cost of living adjustment that was higher than planned, and that our revenue may be lower because of the impact of COVID on some commercial users that had lower water use, which leads to lower EDU and sewer service charge revenue. So those things indeed happened, and so this adjusted budget shows going in maybe the wrong direction in both revenues and expenses, and yet we still believe we have a balanced budget proposal for you. And we did some increases. We added money for the lateral replacement grant and loan funding per your direction, and we also added some funding in engineering studies to look at recycled water infrastructure on our side of the CMSA boundary, compared to San Rafael's side, right? There's a dividing line. So we were looking at that because of potential development at the Larkspur Landing property, but we could also do an engineering study of looking beyond that, and whether we could do a pipeline for that whole area east of 101. But to do that, to answer those questions about how much it would cost and what are the best feasible alternatives, we need to do an engineering study. So known as a purple pipe study for non-potable water from CMSA to be used for things like irrigation, maybe dual flushing of toilets. There's other ways new development can incorporate non-potable water resource, especially, and we're in the drought, but that reminds us that water resources in Marin County are limited, and that there may be a role for that in future development in Larkspur Landing. Those are a couple highlights of changes, but I do want to hand things over to Felicia to give you more in-depth review of the final budget compared to the draft budget, and some highlights that she can point out, and Melvin's here to answer questions as well. Felicia?
Thank you, Steve. I think you hit on the major differences that the board will notice between the draft budget and the final budget that's being presented today. And you also mentioned that this was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting. So actually, I think with that, I'll turn it right over to the board to entertain any questions. Actually, I do, there is a point of information. There had been some specific questions with regards to the high strength commercial users and their winter water usage over fiscal year.
You read my mind.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So, so as the board knows, the sewer service charges for commercial properties are based on water usage from the prior winter. So generally speaking, depending on the MMWD bill cycle, which is a bi-monthly cycle, the commercial properties are get their water usage calculation from either a December, January billing cycle or January, February billing cycle, again, depending on where they are in the bi-monthly billing. And we get that information from MMWD in generally the April time period. We calculate the water usage of those properties by virtue actually of Ordinance 101 into corresponding EDUs, equivalent dwelling units. And then we figure out what exactly is each commercial property's actual sewer service charges for the next fiscal year, so for fiscal year 21-22. And now that we were able to have all of that data available to us, we did find that there was a significant drop in EDU count and therefore a drop in revenue for fiscal year 2021 within the commercial high strength customer class. So specific numbers are, for example, last year, the total high strength winter EDU was 8,990, resulting in a revenue of approximately 1.3 million. And this year, the same customer class has a reduced total EDU of 7,332, so well over 1,600 fewer EDUs with a resulting revenue of 1.16 in round numbers.
Yeah.
So approximately $600,000 in lost revenue due to that reduced water usage over that period of time.
Thank you for reading my mind and answering my question that I gave you telepathically.
Yes. Thank
plus, and Felicia, I'm not sure, I may not be correct here, but I think the hospital census was extremely low. They stopped all surgeries, so the water usage even at the hospital had declined. So it all adds up.
That's a very interesting piece of information, Director Meggs, and I wouldn't be able to do it at this point in time, but I could certainly drill down into those individual commercial customers and see which, actually look at Marin General Hospital's specific sewer service charges and see how much of their.
Yeah, nurses were laid off because they wouldn't do surgeries during COVID, during the height of the COVID. So.
Right. And as you know, they're our biggest customer, so they probably did have an impact on our revenue.
The other side of that equation is that restaurants were terribly hard hit during the pandemic, and they'll be beneficiaries of much lower charges in the year. So it's a good place for the savings to be for them, because I know restaurants suffered.
Yes, excellent point, Director Gaffney. Thank you for bringing that up. Steve, are you on mute or were you saying something? Yep. No, I can't hear either. I can't hear Steve or Mary.
I can't hear you, Mary.
Steve's going to log out and log back in.
Mm-hmm. Are you back?
Yeah, testing.
Good. Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah, I was gonna just note that, Felicia, I think you touched on it in the staff report, but the way that the rates are structured, it has a fairness to it, because if there's lower economic activity as relating to water use, the fees are lower. You know, so and like you said, Director Gaffney, the reduction in revenue really is ascribed to those who are presumably less able to afford it because of economic reasons. You know, so it's a good system. You know, the way it's sensitive to water use, it reflects the economic impact.
Exactly.
All right, can you hear me now? Okay, great.
I have a question. And I had talked to Steve about this today. It's about the purple pipe. And it's a study. I'm just wondering, is this timing of the study, is it too soon? We haven't even sewed up Larkspur Landing. And I'm also wondering why we're paying it all. Why doesn't CMSA pay for part of it? Or maybe, I mean, is this just for CMSA? I'm a little confused. And Steve, I'm sorry, I probably didn't get it all my answers clear today with you. So I'm trying to rationalize the benefits, and are we paying for everybody else? Or should they be putting something in the pot to pay for this? That's it.
Steve, I'll let you take that one.
Sure, and actually, I'd like to hear from other board members too. It's a good question. I think in answering that, this would provide some answers to questions by being an engineering study. So while we're not in a hurry, it's good to have answers when the questions come. So if something moves quickly, we'll have studied the feasibility and we'll have looked at, you know, whether the current pipe, you know, the force main alignment is a great way to put a pipe in, or is there an alternative that's more cost effective? We'd have some answers to questions if we get started this year. So it doesn't have to be triggered by a development proposal. It can be independent, and also we're, as half members of CMSA, and you know, we'd be studying a pipe that would go in our direction that would benefit us and maybe SD2. And so I don't know if San Rafael should have to pay for a feasibility study on this side of the mountain. You know, so that's one way of explaining that. But it's a good question. It's a fair question. You know, CMSA could look at this and look at purple pipe north, you know, in San Rafael as well. So it's not a bad question.
Yeah, I mean, my impulse is it's $50,000. At one point we had allocated, I think it was hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to do a recycled water, you know, grant to somebody to do something creative. This was some years ago, and we couldn't even get any takers. It was kind of so outside the box. I don't think we got any applications. This was when Greg was the general manager. So to my mind, it's not that much money. On the other hand, I think it's a good point, and I'm certainly, you know, would encourage Steve to ask Jason if, you know, if we're in a drought, you want to start thinking about how to run a purple pipe, and talk to the board chair over there about putting a little money in the budget next year for that. Tom, go ahead.
Well, I think Pam brought up something pretty good, because I was kind of thinking about that too. And Las Colinas has done a big program, and I'm pretty sure MMWD paid at least half of it. But this is kind of a pilot study, and we really might have a huge benefit here if we could get recycled water, say, to Larkspur Landing. Then it might help a project, you know, funded. A brand new project can use purple pipe a lot better than the existing. And the biggest problem with recycled water is the distribution costs. They're more than half of the, way more than half of the total cost. So it really is difficult to pipe individual homes. It needs a big project. And the other point is that CMSA already put in a pipe through the where our force main goes to the treatment plant. I think there's a 6-inch purple pipe in there or an 8-inch. I don't remember which. And so that was funded by CMSA already, but we're not going to be able to build anything for 50,000. It would be it's going to be a big cost. This is just a preliminary, and we'll get to look at the scope of what they're going to do anyway. Let's figure out what we want somebody to do for 50,000. So I think it's a good idea to start, and it's a terrible time in our county with the drought. So at least we're preemptive on that.
Yeah, and hearing from Director Meggs on this, I think we could structure this, if you put it in this year's budget, we can keep the board very much in the loop and updated on when and whether we issue an RFP, the results of that RFP, our recommended selection, even though it's in the budget, it's still on the $50,000 level. So it would still come back to the board. You would weigh in on the next steps. You'd get a sense of what the scope was, and if you think it's worth the district's investment along the way. So,
yeah, I think Tom makes a good point. It couldn't be more timely as we start to think about what's going to happen with Larkspur Landing. I mean, it really could be an amazing opportunity to use.
Yeah, but I just don't feel if that's raw land and we sell it, why do we need to start working on engineering and all that? I mean, we haven't even finished. We can't even sell it right now. We're still waiting on the state. And I'm like, we're starting to pay money to do
It's a line item. We're not committed to using it. It's just saying, well, we've got this idea. And I think it's just kind of an exploratory study. We've spent far more on consolidation studies and then how to use recycled water in San Quentin's toilets once upon a time, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Anyway, so I don't think the scope is out of.
Okay, but I want to go back to my question though about CMSA or these other agencies. Should they be contributing to this? Because I just want to make sure we're not taking the taxpayers' money, sort of like kind of being a bit whimsical about it.
Go ahead, Michael. Oh. I can't hear you now, Michael. I think you're
breaking up.
Nope, can't hear you. Yeah, go on out and come back in. Well, like I was saying, from my perspective, it's just, it's a line item based placeholder. So I don't have any problem with it. And anything that we would be spent on would be brought to us. Felicia and Steve, how did you come up with that number?
Yeah, that was actually, I think, mentioned at the last board meeting. If someone could refresh my memory, Director Kelly, did you recall that conversation that we had? And I don't remember specifically why $50,000 came to mind, but it seemed like, I think, more of a placeholder amount. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's.
Go ahead, Director Kelly.
It's just a beginning of what we're going to need to do to use more reclaimed water throughout the county. This is going to be very expensive, but in the long run, the right thing to do for a myriad of reasons.
But why are we getting into the planning realm when we haven't even sold the land? It doesn't make any sense to me. That is for developer and whoever's going to get that land. That's their responsibility. We're like, you know, we're pulling the trigger when we don't really need to do that yet. So, I mean, I just know how planning goes, and these are huge endeavors of engineers and planning and all that. But why should we pay for that now? Where did this come from, by the way? Was it CMSA? Was it a meeting? Where did it?
Am I back? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Now
No.
we can.
Okay. Here's my thought on this. First of all, this is only a feasibility study. Can recycled water get from CMSA, where we receive it now? We use 40% of our water usage for the trucks is with this water, to get it for the sole purpose of to the Larkspur Landing property. Is it doable? Which doesn't benefit, yeah, of course it benefits all residents of Marin County, but it really doesn't benefit directly to Santerfell or even directly to Corte Madera, because, I'm sorry, what? Nobody can hear me?
You're breaking in and out.
No, we can.
You
You've
can
had a
hear me,
pause
okay.
for a moment, but you're back.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, this is for us to have a feasibility study. Like what Tom said, getting it out to Fairfax or San Anselmo is a huge endeavor. I believe that the pipe does exist already through the mountain and over to the property. And this is just a feasibility study to say, could that be used? And that would hopefully benefit us in ultimately marketing the property.
Who's
If we
they?
can say
Who's
there's
they, Mark?
recycled.
Who's they?
I'm sorry. Who?
You said they.
I'm not sure. Okay, in what context did I say they?
You said they could use this or something like that.
Yeah, our people who are going to be marketing this to
Oh.
potential buyers out there, if they're able to say that there's been, okay.
Is there a way?
Don't wag your head. Just listen
yourself.
for a second. If the people are able to say, please, okay, I'll shut up until you're done, Pam. Let me know when I can talk.
It's difficult because there are some lags. I don't think anybody's intending to be, disrespectful. And now,
I'm doing the best I can here.
okay.
Basically, I think it's a feasibility study to see, can recycled water be used for our benefit on Larkspur Landing? That's really it. It's not for the benefit of Fairfax or San Anselmo or anybody else. It's just, can we use the recycled water that we're already using on Larkspur Landing? And I'm sorry about any delays which you're having, probably from the heat.
I mean, I also look at this as just getting recycled water from CMSA back into our district boundaries. It wouldn't necessarily just need to be for Larkspur. It could be for some other, uses, right? I mean, we were talking about the challenges of what MMWD wanted us to do in terms of filling up our trucks. Anyway, that's one thought I had.
I appreciate that input, and it's okay. We can look at the board has a choice, has discretion. You can look at things strictly from, the ratepayers and our core mission, but you can also participate in the grander context of like the North Bay Watershed Association and say, okay, this is our product that we collect and deliver to CMSA, and we are half of CMSA. And it's your choice, as a board, you can direct us to get a little outside of the core mission, recognizing we're part of the water cycle and that we have a role in providing answers to questions. There is a question of what's the cost and the feasibility of expanding non-potable use, maybe starting with a potential development at our Larkspur Landing Circle property, but maybe think a little beyond and think like a one water context. It's not too much, it's no additional engineering effort to size a potential project there. And yeah, you know, it's that this is something, there's a bit of a void, I'll be honest. Marin Municipal Water District is not showing leadership in recycled water project development, you know, and so you as a board, because this is your wheelhouse, you know, this is your product, it's your choice. Do you want to put information on the table on feasibility? For now, from a budget standpoint, you know, we were hearing, yeah, you know, we can make bandwidth available here at the staff level to study this, and it might, like Director Borstein said, it could make the property more marketable if it has a feasible non-potable water use associated with it in this drought, you know. So this leaves your options open. Maybe nothing happens with the 50,000, but if you authorize, you know, this fiscal year, given what's all unfolding in the world, but if we get no rainfall next winter, it's going to be a different world. And there's an exponential curve of water value. And when it becomes scarce, it goes up to the 7th power in terms of its value. And all of a sudden that purple pipe becomes very valuable. You know, so keep these things in mind, but you have a choice as a board. You know, you can take this as far as you want, or as you know, little as you want. But if you want to be a one water participant, this is an opportunity.
Well, I'd also point out that there's Larkspur Landing apartment complex where I first moved to when I moved to California, which has got all sorts of grass. And there's several other housing properties there that are all the same. So if we can get it to our facility, we can get it to them too. And then we've started. So I think the use of recycled water is something that we should be absolutely leaders on. And Mary said, it's a perfect time. 10 years before would have been a better time. We'd be in better shape right now.
Well, I'm thinking about pipe, you know, plumbing for landscape, you know, they could put in when they start building on Larkspur Lane.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny to me because we have spent we've budgeted at least a lot more money than this for things that were not directly related to our mission. So I don't have a problem with this at all. And I think, yeah, it's a good thing to do.
Yep.
Yes.
You know what I think if we polled our ratepayers, they would be all over in favor of this. I think the county is realizing we're in a bad situation. And I believe that if we come up with any kind of a project, that's the time to go back to CMSA. You know, it's to their benefit too. They're part of the One Water and this program. It's just a good idea to get started on this, and as opposed to waiting around. And I would like to see us have a truck filling station if we could. Now that would be a direct benefit to us, and we could put it out at our pump station out there on the Larkspur Landing area, and you know, so we could do our filling, and that would save us going over the hill and into that check into the Central Marin. You know, that'd save maybe 20 minutes a truck or more than that. So I'm definitely in favor of that. And the Finance Committee's reviewed this in a lot of detail, discussed it in a lot of detail. Is it appropriate for me to make a motion?
I think Pam wants to say something else. Yeah, just a moment. Yes.
You done? You done? Okay. When we sell that property, and correct me if I'm wrong, we won't have access to that purple pipe. So you can plant, you can do all, you know, talk all your environmental talk about a purple pipe, which I actually been, when I first got elected, I was bugging the manager and everybody said, oh no, it's too expensive, you know, and now it's becoming a reality, but at a price. But what I'm saying is, you're talking about using this as an ongoing recycled use for the community. Once that land is gone, we have no right to go near it. The thing that bothers me the most, though, is that I feel like there's something like we're paying for these other agencies. And you're right, it's not a huge amount of money. Yes, we paid $120,000 for a consolidation independent study. Yes, we've paid all kinds of hundreds of thousands of dollars for different studies that were probably a waste of money. And look, I am totally for recycled water, totally. You know, my whole life has been environmental Sierra Club stuff. But I just want to make sure it's done in a fair and respectful way rather than, oh yeah, let's just do it. And then what is the propensity after on how it's going to be used? Like I said, you know, we could do a feasible study, that's fine. We could charge the person, hopefully, unless it was an affordable housing sale, we could say, okay, give us back the 50 grand for the feasible study. But there's something about this that just doesn't feel right. What feels right, though, is to look to the future. I don't, you know, and yes, I know about One Water and all that, yet I just feel like how it's being done. What I'd really like is to take it out of the budget and deal with it separately. And that way it would be, you know, it wouldn't be like a, what did you call it, a placeholder. Because as we know, a lot of times these placeholders, they sort of get swept into motion and forgotten and all that. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Well, it's in the budget at a level at which Steve could not approve it himself, and therefore it will come to the board, and we can ask all the questions about how the money is being spent at that point. Correct? And so I hear all your concerns. We're not telling the staff they get to decide how this feasibility study is going to be done, who's going to do it, or what it's going to cover. And I also don't think it's just I mean, I think it would be cool if we got recycled water onto the Larkspur Landing property in a way that wouldn't be possible unless we do it before something is built there. But I'm not implying that would be the only use or that we should absorb the cost. So all we are doing is saying in next year, we want to think about this idea, and then the staff will bring us back proposals about how that $50,000 might be spent towards this goal. Yes, Doug.
We are retaining some property at Larkspur Landing, Steve. Is that correct?
That's right. We already told City of Larkspur we need a minimum of a quarter acre, if not more, or as a perimeter around Pump Station 10.
Right.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
We have a pump station and a little bit of land so that we could have a filling station. We could have the purple pipe land there and fill trucks up on a quarter of an acre of land.
And you know, when you build a purple pipe, some public agency is in charge of it. It's just like they put their sewers there and then we're in charge of the sewers. And oftentimes there's a charge for the potable water. It can't exceed the recycled water can't exceed the cost of the potable, but they might get a use permit based on that they have to use recycled water, or maybe if we put a purple pipe out there, and you know, who knows how this is going to work, but it might be that all new development has to use recycled water. You know, that's the kind of thing we could look at. I hope you don't vote against the budget just because of a minor item.
I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this? Because I would abstain that part and vote for the budget. Everything else is cool and groovy in the budget. What is the limit on the manager to be able to do this on his own?
Isn't it 50,000? It's right at the same mark.
35,000.
Oh,
So,
35.
no, it's 35. Yeah, it's 35.
But regardless, I mean, Pam, this is really surprising to me because this seems like the kind of thing Frank Yeager would have been all over once upon a time. Like this is forward.
Please don't compare me to Frank. It's really like every time there's some kind of extended debate, Frank comes up. I'm not Frank.
Okay.
I didn't always vote with Frank, and so I'm coming
Right,
more.
my apologies. I shouldn't have raised that. Okay. Well,
I don't bring up other names to you guys, so if you could not do that. But anyway, I guess I just don't want us. I don't want to pay for CMSA when they should pay some of it. I heard the
Pam, if I
comment
can,
about the water
We'll have the
district.
opportunity to coordinate with CMSA. Director Meggs, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, you make a great point. And I haven't, we're not tuning you out. That's a definite feedback that we can integrate into what we would come forward with. I'm going to be meeting with Jason Dow over.
Because, at one point, CMSA would not even let us get into their educational program. They voted us out. I think they still have to this day. So if you want to do some horse trading, now's the time. Anyway, I'll vote for it, y'all, but I'm not happy about it. I can't have perfection, but I really want, maybe I should just go talk to Jason on my own.
may I just say this, Pam, two things. I just wanted to make the point that the reason I mentioned to Steve that we still will retain some property rights at Larkspur Landing is because you had said we won't have any access. We will. But secondly, the world has changed at CMSA. We removed Larkspur Landing, and again, they can say they found something in some budget. No, we got them out.
Yeah.
We got our representative elected board president. It's a different world over there. We get along great. All of us get along great. Jason's fabulous. And so things are better. But by all means, go meet Jason. I think that's fine. There's no issue there.
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm friends with them. Okay.
Why don't you guys at Central Marin propose some money? Maybe that'll make Pamela feel better.
I think that's a good idea. And I think the board president over there is Michael Bornstein. So Michael, why don't you put it on the agenda?
We are trying to figure out how we're going to do tertiary cleaning of the water that's in the budget. And so not only for just recycled water, but for real clean water. And so we're doing that study.
Hey, as long as we're on that, let me just say this. The current recycled water at CMSA operates under a state water resource board license of MMWD. That limits our use of recycled water to certain functions such as dust and pipe cleaning, not too much else. Maybe, what is it when you enter the town in the middle of the road? Medians. But if we get our own CMSA recycled water license under State Water Resource Board, we have a lot more opportunities to use that water. And currently, Ross Valley Sanitary District General Manager Steve Moore is working and volunteered this idea with Jason to get us a CMSA State Board relicensed license. So Steve's doing that, and he's doing that in conjunction with Jason Dow, and that'll help us have a lot more opportunities to increase our use of recycled water, which everybody on the CMSA board is very keen to do.
Is that for the public?
I'm sorry?
Is that water for the public?
Well, it would be, again, under our current MMWD license, there's very limited uses. If you had your own license at the plant, it's possible, it doesn't happen automatically, but if you show the State Water Resource Board how and what you're doing, they could allow you to do a lot more things with that water.
Yeah, because we're all these other counties are just passing us by. They're even Las Galinas. They have public recycling where you can go get recycled water for your gardens. And we're not there. Anyway, I don't want to drag out the meeting.
Hopefully we'll get closer with this. And
we're working on it, and I want to congratulate Steve Moore for his hard work on that. And Jason's very grateful to you for that, Steve.
We just happen to have somebody who knows people at the State Water Board running our organization. All right. With all of that, is there any more comment or questions about, or I will entertain a motion? Tom?
I would like to move that we approve resolution number 21-1604 to adopt the fiscal year 21-22 budget.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael.
Second.
Roll call vote, Julia. I heard you, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, now I can't hear Julia.
Julie, we can't hear you.
In-person meetings are looking better all the time.
I vote yes.
Okay.
Chairman, you call the roll.
Is she gonna
Well,
leave?
I can do it. Okay, so Tom voted yes. Pam?
Reluctantly, yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Okay, Michael seconded. Okay, we
Unanimous.
have a unanimous
Yes.
vote. Julia, Andrea called the roll. Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 15. Consideration of adopting resolution 21-1605, approving the salary and benefit schedule for unrepresented employees of the district. Steve or Felicia, whoever would like to handle this item?
Yeah, this is an annual item. The way that it's set up right now is to review for unrepresented employees of the district, the salary and benefit schedule each year. And this year it incorporates a cost of living increase of 4.3% based on the CPI of April. And hand it off to Felicia for any other highlights on this item.
Thank you. Yes, this resolution is identical to the last resolution that the board adopted, with the exception that the salary schedule, Exhibit B, has been modified, updated to reflect the proposed 4.3% COLA for the unrepresented employees of the district, which is in alignment with the COLA that the board approved as part of the 5-year MOU for represented employees of the district. And other than that, there are no other changes to this specific resolution. I will note that in the past, the board has discussed a potential biannual resolution of this type. And I did look at that for this year, decided against it because we will later this calendar year be looking at the actuarial results of determining what the enhanced retiree medical plan contributions will be per employee. So currently, based on the 2019 actuarial recommendation, the district employees pay $109.73 per pay period for that enhanced retiree medical plan that the board recalls is entirely employee funded for retirees of the district. And that should be reviewed, that contribution should be reviewed every couple of years to make sure that it's actually sufficient to fund the plan. And we will be doing that, like I said, later this year. So with that in mind, I didn't want to propose a 2-year resolution for salary and benefits for unrepresented. Other than that minor note, I'm suggesting again that there's no changes to this resolution than the board had previously adopted, but I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Board members, any questions on this?
Well, a comment. The cost of living is going up. I hate to see it at 4.3 as opposed to the floor of 2.5, but I have to agree with Felicia. And, I'm not supposed to notice that it cost me $62 to fill up my gas, fill up my car when it was 48, just shortly ago, but I actually do notice. So I think we could be banging up against 5% real quick. So I'd say let's get the 4.3 and hope everybody can get through their financial situation, because it's costs are going up.
Okay, and this is just squaring the unrepresented with the represented, which we have always done. Okay, hearing no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to adopt Resolution 21-1605, approving the salary and benefit schedule for unrepresented employees of the district.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, Julia, if we can in fact hear you.
Nope, still not.
Okay. Take it away, Andrea, please.
Okay. All right. Tom,
Yes.
Pamela,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 16, consideration of approving amendment to Assistant General Manager contract effective July 1, 2021. Steve, please.
Yes, thank you, President Silla. This item brings the contract for the Assistant General Manager before the board. It was adopted by the board. The manager contracts were adopted in January 2019 and are set to expire in a year from now, June 30th, 2022. There was interest expressed by the board to look at affording the managers of the district the opportunity to receive a bonus based on performance. And so I indicated not long ago, a couple of board meetings ago, that we could look at this contract a year ahead of time and recommend modifications that would enable consideration of bonus payments in addition to performance-based step increases and cost of living adjustments to salary. And so I worked with Council Andrea Clark, and we reviewed the existing contract and drafted amendments to that contract consistent with what the board asked me to do. And I have that before you now as a proposed amendment to Felicia Newhouse's contract. That would now extend for, I believe, until 2024.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, yeah, and it's, and I'll just note that there's an annual performance evaluation, as you do with me. We perform with the managers, and the performance of the assistant general manager has been favorable. She's and we go through a detailed evaluation for all employees, and for supervisors and managers, there's additional categories related to supervisories categories. And so Felicia has scored very high and outstanding and exceptional performance in every category, in my opinion.
And yours is the opinion that matters vis-a-vis her. Yes, Doug.
5% is so much. I mean, that's like costs aren't going up. It still costs me $48 to fill up my car.
Doug, you're working on your stand-up routine here tonight.
I am. I fully support this.
Yeah, we reviewed this at the finance committee meeting. Yeah, Steve and Felicia are an incredible team that has kept everything running smoothly despite a very weird and wild year. And this was at, I think, the board members prompting that Steve look at his direct reports in the way that we have reviewed him and recommend follow-up action, and that's this. Any other questions or comments by board members? Yes, Pam.
I was the one who discovered that Felicia had never got a bonus. Never. I think I was kind of poking around and nosing around. And I thought, she's so well deserved a bonus. So I'm really glad I tooted my horn. So Felicia, you rock, girl. Thank you for all.
Oh,
Yeah. And the thing about Felicia too, she always gets, if she doesn't know the answer, she'll get an answer back to you. So, and you're always in a good mood. So there you go.
thank you.
Yes, thanks, Pam. Okay, if there are no more comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Move for consideration. I move we approve the amendment to the Assistant General Manager contract effective July 1st, 2021. If you could hear me.
Second.
Thank you, Michael and Doug. And are we gonna try Julie again?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Great. Borstein,
Absolutely.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Biggs,
Yes.
Philip,
Yes,
unanimous vote. Thank you.
thank you.
I just want to say thank you all so very much. It's really a true pleasure to work for all of you and for Steve. I've been in the workforce for many, many years, and this is by far my favorite job and my favorite work group. So thank you all very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
That's excellent.
That's lovely. Thank you, Felicia, for contributing to the environment and the morale as well, which I know you do.
Thank you.
All right, so performance metrics. Anything anybody want to call out, or staff, you want to point anything out to us? Looks like there was one small category 3 spill.
That's right. We also, I work with Ben Connor, our acting operation maintenance manager, to give you some detail on crew specific activities. So of note was something I mentioned earlier was our repair crew really did above and beyond to get all of the cease and desist order remaining repairs. And they involve large diameter work. We actually had to purchase you ever heard of a pig, which is a sewer plug that's inflatable? We had to get bigger pigs, and it was for these 12-inch diameter pipes, which are big for our system. We had to get special equipment and learn how to use it. I actually observed the crew doing the work. They had to wrestle that thing in. It was a bigger item. It was a different level, and then we also it has to be done skillfully and get a good seal, a good wrap around that thing, and then you transport it up into this pipe and in a precision manner. It was new equipment that they had to learn how to use, and they did it right on schedule, as if it were the smaller diameter repairs. And so that's a highlight, but I don't want to take away from all the hard work of the other crews that we achieved last month. And our recycled water use in the month of May, kind of kicked back up because we had both sewer trucks in operation, but you won't see the increased recycled water use until the month of June. So that's to come. As far as the SSOs, I got to remind myself here. Yeah, I'm starting to put in narrative about the follow-up. I think that's key. Is like, what did we learn about the SSO? And so you'll find that under the distribution of SSOs by cause. And, specifically, this is roots and grease in an annually clean line. And so our response will be to clean it once every 6 months. And we also noted that our repair crew could play a role in this one, where the hole that the roots got in, if we do a point repair, we should be able to prevent future root problems. So both our line and repair crew are going to respond on this.
I'd like to comment that whoever repairs this should be commended, because I just think it's a really useful summary for us. And we never had one. Maybe it started 4 years ago or so. I carefully read it every time. I think it's quite well done. I like I think you've just started this items of note that's been going on a few months now, and it's very useful.
Steve,
Thank
I've
you.
got a quick question about, do we have information on our website about what kind of plants to plant around laterals? Because I just got this weird root ball in my lateral, and I'm looking at my neighbor's huge oleander. So do we have anything like that? You know, like, I know we have footage to how far away, but what about plants, certain kinds of plants that, you know, they're kind of they're kind of evil plants.
Well, they're all, yeah. Yeah, we don't, the answer is no, we don't have a list of recommended plants per se. It's an interesting question though, because I wonder if within the sewer community, you know, within CASA or fellow agencies, if anybody's looked into this before.
I'll look, you know what, I'll look at CASA. I'll go online.
And there is kind of a universal thing though, you know, with the plant root system. Maybe there, of course, nothing's completely equal out there, but they're all going to search out water sources, and you know, and so that's why we have kind of a blanket prohibition on trees. You know, no matter what the tree species, it's gonna go find the sewer if there's any crack whatsoever. It'll find it. It has its own amazing system of finding water, right? So. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think in the end we tend to be conservative, right? And just say don't plant anything with a rooting.
No, not now, but
but yeah, you know, it's an interesting question because I think grass is okay, right? You know, I don't know if Phil's still on. I haven't heard about.
there are some
grass.
plants that are just aggressive for water.
Yeah, some grasses have deep roots though, so you know.
Yeah.
We're getting into botany here. This is botany. It's not.
This is something that I want to work on in the education committee with Doug.
Oh, okay. Plant like don't plant anything over the sewer, but if you have to, here's some
Dandelions.
All right.
All right, that I believe is our last agenda item. So unless anybody has anything else they want to discuss.
Next meeting?
The next meeting is in July 21st.
Yep.
So I'll see you all then, if not before. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
all.